And John Lee attends a policy address consultation session in Bangkok. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Israel launched a wave of air raids across southern Lebanon in what is said was a preemptive strike on Hezbollah. The Iranian-backed group said it has sent hundreds of rockets and drones back at Israel. Early reports say 2 people have been killed in Lebanon. The heavy exchange of fire came amid mounting fears of an all-out war that could draw in the United States, Iran and its Hezbollah allies across the region. David Garrett has the latest.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was soon at a security cabinet meeting. He said, "We detected Hezbollah's preparations to attack and proactively instructed the IDF to remove the threat. They destroyed thousands of rockets aimed at the north of the country. They thwarted many other threats operating with great power." Hezbollah fired back, explosions spotted over Haifa, the Israeli coastal city in the north. The Iran-backed Hezbollah group has been threatening to attack Israel since the assassination of a commander in Beirut last month. Hezbollah says it launched hundreds of Katyusha rockets and drones aimed at Israel. Israel passenger planes were diverted due to aerial attacks. Some airports in the north of Israel were closed down, with planes landing in the south. The attacks came as Egypt hosts talks aimed at ending the Israel-Hamas war. Egypt warned against a new war front in Lebanon and called for stability after the latest exchange. Hezbollah has said it will halt fighting if there is a ceasefire in Gaza. Israel and Hezbollah have traded fire since Israel's invasion of the Gaza Strip in October. This escalation raises fears of a wider war that could drag in Israel's ally, the United States, and Iran that supports Hezbollah. David Garrett, TVB News.
The founder and chief executive of the Telegram messaging app has been arrested by French authorities near Paris. Media reports say Russian-French billionaire Pavel Durov was taken into custody after arriving at Bourget airport from Azerbaijan. He was reportedly targeted by an arrest warrant in France as part of a preliminary police investigation. The probe is allegedly focused on a lack of moderators on Telegram, which police say allows undeterred criminal activity on the popular app. Encrypted Telegram has almost 1 billion users worldwide and is influential in Russia, Ukraine, and former Soviet republics. Russia-born, Dubai-based Durov founded Telegram with his brother in 2013. He left Russia in 2014 after refusing to comply with government demands to shut down opposition communities on one of his social media platforms. French authorities have opened a terrorism investigation after an arson attack on a synagogue in a southwestern Mediterranean town left a police officer injured. Security forces are searching for the suspect. 2 cars parked at the Beth Yaakov synagogue complex in the seaside resort town of La Grande Motte near Montpellier were set ablaze just after 8 a.m. Additional fires were lit at 2 entrances. A police officer who walked up to the site was injured after a propane gas tank in one of the vehicles exploded. 5 people, including the rabbi who were inside, were unharmed. Prosecutors were investigating the attack as an attempted assassination linked to a terrorist group. They said a male suspect spotted in surveillance videos fleeing the site was carrying a Palestinian flag and a weapon. Back locally, Chief Executive John Lee today attended a district forum in Bangkok to listen to public views and suggestions on the upcoming policy address in October. Celine Chen reports.
Chief Executive John Lee arrived at a secondary school in Bangkok this morning to listen to the public suggestions regarding his third policy address. At the forum, Ms. Ngai, who is from the retail industry, urged the government to seek the central government's approval for Shenzhen residents to visit Hong Kong through multiple entry individual visit endorsements so as to increase the number of tourists coming to the city. As more local residents go north for consumption activities these days, she also suggested another round of consumption vouchers to encourage domestic consumption. This meant that the government should utilize the city's harbourfront and develop new boat tours of various areas around Victoria Harbour. In response, the CE said the government's policy is to attract visitors and the administration would discuss their suggestions with Beijing. He also stressed that while the administration plays a leading role in economic development, local residents' participation in the formulation and promotion of such policies would also be much needed. Some participants are also concerned about the city's innovation and technology development and called for further application of new technologies across different sectors. The city's leader said Hong Kong needs to enhance its IT development, and the government will step up its efforts in searching for technology products to help enterprises upgrade and transform. Chief Executive John Lee said over 30 consultation sessions had been held since mid-July. He said he will continue to reach out to the community and gather more views and opinions from the public. Celine Chan, TVB News.
Another concern raised at today's consultation session, the city's social welfare, including such issues as mental health and support services for elderly people. Chief Executive John Lee said there will be needs-based allocation of resources.
With Hong Kong's aging population, emerging in tandem are problems with elderly care, particularly pressure and even tragedies involving seniors who have to take care of another elderly family member. The citizen hopes the government will compile a register that identifies the city's high-risk seniors, especially the so-called hidden elderly, who are not regular beneficiaries or on the radar of social welfare institutions. This woman said the community service vouchers have been useful, but such services are limited on Sundays or holidays. At the policy address public consultation session, the city's mental health support was also flagged. This woman asked if the government will consider extending the three-tier emergency mechanism, which will end soon. She asked if additional professional counseling services and counselor positions can be set up at district health stations and schools. In response, Chief Executive John Lee admitted the demand is huge and prioritization is key. In terms of resource allocation, he said the city needs to also focus on tackling the cause of mental health woes. They include building resilience and problem-solving skills of young people. Front and center among the public's concerns too are housing needs. This man hopes the sale of public rental housing can be relaunched while optimizing the pricing, premium payment arrangements and management of the estates for sale. This man said the city has much undeveloped land that could be unlocked from the Country Park Ordinance. The CEO noted he tapped views from various sectors on the city's subdivided units. He said new requests will be made to relevant working groups in the upcoming policy address to tackle issues related to subdivided flats.
More than 943,000 travelers crossed Shenzhen's land border on Saturday, marking the highest single-day number this year. The number of inbound and outbound travelers at the Shenzhen land port at Futian and Laowu topped 237,000 and 261,000 respectively. The number at Shenzhen Bay and Liantang ports meanwhile surpassed 157,000 and 102,000 respectively. The single-day tallies at all four ports set record highs after the border reopened post-pandemic. Shenzhen Port said the ports are busier at the end of the summer vacation. That's not just because of the travel rush by mainland residents, but also Hong Kong and Macau residents traveling up north during the summer vacation and foreigners visiting China. Travelers are advised to plan their trips and avoid peak hours. And still ahead, a new collision between Chinese and Philippine vessels in disputed waters in the South China Sea. German police say a Syrian asylum seeker has turned himself in after Saturday's knife attack that killed 3. And locally, senior citizens now have to use the JoyU card to enjoy the $2 concessionary fare on public transport. Welcome back. Chinese and Philippine vessels were involved in a new collision in disputed waters, Chinese media reported. CCTV quoted a China Coast Guard spokesman as saying that a collision occurred near Xianbin Reef in the Nansha Islands, which Manila calls the Sabina or Escoda Shoal. It said the Philippine vessel refused to comply with control measures and deliberately collided with a Chinese Coast Guard ship. The report said a Filipino crew member fell into the water and was rescued by the Chinese. Philippine media later quoted the National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea as saying there is no truth to claims that one of its men fell overboard. Manila said Chinese ships deliberately blocked one of his vessels sent to resupply fishermen with food, fuel, and medicines. The incident comes weeks after the two nations held talks about reducing tensions in South China Sea waters claimed by both countries. German police say a 26-year-old Syrian asylum seeker turned himself in, claiming to be behind Saturday's deadly Zhonglin knife attack that left 3 dead. Prosecutors suspect him of being a member of Islamic State. Officers shouted at the man and in their vehicle to stay seated as they detained a suspect related to the crime in the town early Sunday. Police say he stated that he was responsible. Investigations continue, but prosecutors say the man they had been looking for was in custody. Islamic State claimed responsibility for the crime on Saturday. Investigators were seen entering a house for asylum seekers earlier. The victims were two 56-year-olds and another who was 67. Floral tributes have been growing in the city, which was due to be celebrating its 650th anniversary. 4 people, including a police officer, were injured in a stabbing in southern Sydney. A man who ran from the scene was taken into custody. No one was killed in the attack, which came after a domestic-related incident in a car that collided with another vehicle. Police say the attacker was armed with a box cutter. It was the latest in a series of knife assaults in Australia's biggest city this year. The New South Wales government has tightened knife laws after several recent stabbing incidents, giving officers metal-detecting scanners. The U.S. space agency NASA has decided that it's too risky to bring 2 astronauts back to Earth in Boeing's troubled new capsule. They will have to wait until February next year for a ride home with SpaceX. This report from NBC News.
Tonight, a stunning announcement from NASA.
NASA has decided that Butch and Sonny will return with Crew 9 next February.
NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams were aboard Boeing Starliner's historic launch in June, the first with a crew, but they were only supposed to be in space for a week. NASA now says they'll return from the International Space Station 8 months past schedule on a SpaceX Dragon capsule, Boeing's biggest competitor.
This has not been an easy decision, but it is absolutely the right one.
The troubled Boeing Starliner spacecraft has been plagued by helium leaks and thruster issues. NASA testing to find out whether Starliner could fly home with Butch and Sonny on board, but the risk ultimately too high.
We have had mistakes done in the past. We lost 2 space shuttles as a result of there not being a culture in which information could come forward.
Boeing released this statement saying they continue to focus first and foremost on the safety of the crew and spacecraft.
Here we are in the front of the International Space Station.
NASA insisting Butch and Sonny have plenty of supplies to get them through and confident, despite the major setback, in Starliner's future.
Senator Nelson, how certain are you that Boeing will ever launch Starliner with a crew on board again?
100%.
SpaceX Dragon capsule will save 2 seats for Butch and Sonny when it launches to the International Space Station. But before that, the Starliner spaceship will undock and head back to Earth with no one on board.
Starting today, elderly residents aged 60 or above must use a Joyu card to enjoy the $2 per trip concessionary fare on public transport. Some residents said they support the policy. Lee Mo-Seng reports.
Signs explaining the new $2 concessionary fare policy were put up at Wong Tai Shin MTR station. The railway company deployed extra staff to help relevant individuals. Starting today, residents aged between 60 and 64 can only benefit from the $2 per trip concessionary fare by using a Joyu card. Those who use the anonymous Elder Octopus cards and ordinary personalized Octopus cards will no longer be covered by the $2 scheme. Non-Joyu card holders aged 65 or above are now required to pay half the adult fare if they continue to use an Elder Octopus for traveling on public transport. Admiralty Station was also busy this morning. The senior citizen said he supports the new requirement.
There must be a limit for everything. So there's also a start for everything. So this is the start for the Know Your Card. I hope the young people are willingly to help the elderly people to do all this application job. It was very easy for me but not for everybody.
This elderly man said he is not concerned about the new policy.
I have this one, so I'm not too worried. My colleague applied for me.
Up until now, the government said they had received about 134,000 Zhao card applications from people aged 65 or above. Non-Zhao card holders can still submit their applications by post or through the Octopus app.
While no activation of Zhao cards is required, first-time users must top up more than $50 before using them. News 9, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.